opponent. Thank you for being here. Please begin by telling us your name, spelling your name, telling us your organization, and then you'll have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. My name is Kate Wolfe, Katewolfe, appearing before you today on behalf of Raise the Wage Nebraska, a statewide coalition consisting of over 25 organizations and individuals who have put forward ballot initiative 433 to amend Nebraska's minimum wage law gradually and responsibly from $9 an hour to $15 an hour by 2026, and to be adjusted annually thereafter to account for increases in the cost of living. Currently in Nebraska, a minimum wage worker earns less than $19,000 per year, forcing many people to work multiple jobs. It is wrong that Nebraska parents who work full-time don't make enough to get by. Initiative 433 would raise the minimum wage so hardworking Nebraskans, such as healthcare aides, classroom aides, waitstaff, and skilled assembly line workers, can earn enough to afford to feed their family and pay their rent. It would also help thousands of Nebraska children whose parents earn a minimum wage. There's often misinformation about who will benefit from Initiative 433, and you may hear this from opponents today, so I want to underscore that the numbers I will share with you are based on data that is available to all. These facts are highlighted in a recent report from the National Employment Law Project and shows that 75% of those who will benefit from an increase in the minimum wage are adults over the age of 20. We also know that there are 61% are women in that population. 43% of them have attended college, including many who have graduated with a post-secondary degree. Most importantly, 21% of those who will benefit are parents. Raising Nebraska's minimum wage would immediately reduce the number of children living in poverty, and we know that doing so will provide positive outcomes for many Nebraska families. Too many parents work multiple jobs to make ends meet and often must make the difficult decision between paying rent or putting food on the table. When it comes to the impact that Initiative 433 will have on our economy, we can look back at the data following the last time that people voted to increase the minimum wage. After Nebraska implemented gradual increases in the minimum wage following a 2014 ballot initiative, employment, wage, and business data showed positive gains in workforce and economic growth. By the time the state reached its target rate of $9 in 2016, Nebraska saw a drop in the unemployment rate and net gains in the number of employed workers, business starts, and total number of business establishments. These positive economic trends continued a year later, and similar results have been seen in both Missouri and Arkansas in recent years. As in Nebraska, Missouri and Arkansas experienced positive workforce and economic impacts following increases in their minimum wage. All of these metrics support the fact that policies that increase the minimum wage accomplish exactly what they set out to do. They benefit workers, families, children, and the economy. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Wolfe. Now I'd ask Katie Bollmeyer from the Lincoln Independent Business Association. Please come forward as you have and share your opening remarks for the opponents. Begin by stating your name, spelling your name, telling us who you represent, and then you'll have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. For the record, my name is Katie Bollmeyer, KatieBohlmeyer, and I am the Policy and Research Coordinator at LIBA. Lincoln Independent Business Association has around 1,000 small businesses in and around the Lincoln area. I am here on behalf of those business owners and workers to lay out their concerns over this proposed mandate. I would like to thank everyone who has come out today. Some of you may disagree with what I have to say, but I appreciate you all for taking the time out of your day to do your part in what makes Nebraska a great state. I'm glad to be here today with Kate Wolfe. While we may disagree, I'm appreciative of her efforts to make the state better for those in it. The minimum wage often gets confused as the glass ceiling for many workforce employees. However, the minimum wage is defined as the lowest remuneration that employers can legally pay their employees, or the price floor below which employees may not sell their labor. This is intended for teenagers and others first entering the workforce as a standard base pay, or a platform at which employees gain experience and skills, which can then be used for collective bargaining and request higher pay. These workers make up less than 2% of the workforce. The current economic state is an important factor as to why raising the minimum wage is a detrimental decision. Our average weekly earnings in American households have risen by 4.2%, but when accounting for inflation, it actually fell 2.4%. This has already forced business owners to raise prices, cut overhead expenses, shorten their inventory, and live within a very tight profit margin. Every business owner we have talked with is already starting their salary way over the $9 minimum wage. When asked how this decision would affect their businesses and wages, their number one concern is raising the minimum wage is inflationary to their business and ultimately the economy. For example, a small business's lowest starting wage is set at $13 an hour for janitorial duties. Experience in terms of years increases that salary 25 cents. The next level starting wage is $16.25 an hour and is based on skill set. If forced to increase to the $13 an hour to $15 an hour, they will be forced to raise the second level by a similar rate, and so on and so forth throughout their entire business. This will force them to either reduce staff and pay overtime, reduce services and inventory and limit their business opportunity, or ultimately close their business due to loss in profit, which leads to larger corporations able to create a monopoly. The language set in this proposal is by January 1st, 2023 to $10.50 an hour, which is a 16.7% increase. Then January 1st, 2024 to $12 an hour, and another 14.3% increase. Next to January 1st, 2025 to $13.50 an hour, another 12.5% increase, and finally to January 1st, 2026 to $15 an hour, totaling to a 66.7% increase overall within 4 years. Starting after January 2026, the minimum wage will then be adjusted each year based on increases to the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers for the Midwest region. It is no secret that businesses do not like government regulations and overreach, but that is exactly what this mandate is: the government forcing businesses to adhere to their rules. However, the current market sets the wages. The state of the economy and competition between businesses forces the market to set the starting wage. Every business owner, president, and CEO can tell you they do not know a single business owner who is using the minimum wage of $9 an hour. Nebraska employers have to compete for labor, so they are already paying well above the minimum wage. Did you know Nebraska is less expensive on average across the United States, and as a whole, Nebraska has the lowest unemployment rate in the nation? According to the Nebraska Department of Economic Development, Nebraska currently has over 59,000 job openings and is at a record low unemployment rate. Employers are struggling to stay competitive and find good workers. The lack of workforce has already put pressure on business owners, many of which have starting salaries at the proposed wage. Depleting small businesses in Nebraska will allow larger franchises to swoop in and create a monopoly. Brian Baumgart, for the record spelled BryanBaumgart, is a small business owner from Omaha, and he believes the minimum wage hike will force many restaurants like his to shut their doors. He does not see any possible way for a small business to survive it. He has been forced to raise his prices several times this past year just to make enough to cover payroll. The burritos his business sells has had to go from $9 to nearly $13. Forcing this increase would cause them to raise the price and offset the increase in expenses. He believes no one is going to buy a $20 burrito in 2023. This is the reality of a $15 an hour minimum wage for small Nebraska businesses with 10 employees. It requires a minimum of an extra $124,800 a year in labor, plus an additional payroll taxes of $9,547.27, concluding to a total minimum budget hit of $134,347.20. There are no small businesses here with 10 employees sitting on that kind of extra money. Even a minimum wage employee that collects an extra $12,480 a year will end up paying an additional $2,808 in federal and $187.20 in state income taxes as well as $955 in additional payroll taxes. This leaves them with $8,530 extra dollars in their pockets, but many now won't qualify for healthcare subsidies and other forms of assistance. They are, however, left paying for more of all the goods and services they need as prices have to rise in order to offset this huge increase in labor expenses. Most of the testimony heard today in support of this ballot measure consists of people suggesting more money in employees' pockets equals more money spent and a better economy. This, however, is not exactly what it will look like. It is true there will be more money taken home by employees, but to offset this deficit, businesses will be forced to increase prices on goods and services. The decision some are faced with on whether to buy groceries or pay rent will not disappear, but rather grow to a larger bill to decide between. Large corporations will win this price war and deplete small businesses throughout the state. Voting no to Initiative 433 saves small businesses in Nebraska, which is what makes Nebraska the good life. Let's keep it that way. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bollmeyer. We're going to turn to testimony from those of you who came in and signed the sheet. And we will begin with Susan Martin, Ms. Martin, in support of Initiative 433. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon, Secretary Evnen.
Please tell us your name, spell your name. If you're representing a group, please let us know that, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Susan Martin, SUSAN Martin. I'm here on behalf of the Nebraska State AFL-CIO. The Nebraska State AFL-CIO and our over 23,000 union members across the state support Raise the Wage Nebraska and ballot Initiative 433. The rules that govern the labor market determine whether our wages stay flat or whether they rise as working people become more productive and create more wealth. For the past 35 years, politicians have made policy choices that keep wages flat and allow people at the top to capture the gains from economic growth. We must rewrite the rules of the labor market to ensure working people share in the wealth we help create and our incomes rise as we become more productive. Rewriting the rules must include putting full employment back at the center of our economic policies and increasing the minimum wage to $15 per hour. Since more women have joined the labor market, a higher minimum wage is crucial to closing that gender pay gap and boosting income for families that rely more on the earnings of women. We need to increase the minimum wage to account for inflation, the entry of more women into the workforce, and the vastly increased productivity of working people. A strong minimum wage will help maintain consumer demand as working families spend their higher wages at local businesses and are more likely than any other income group to spend any extra earnings immediately on previously unaffordable basic needs and services. Minimum wage increases are associated with higher consumer spending, particularly in places with higher concentration of low-wage workers. During the COVID-19 pandemic, essential and frontline workers have kept the economy running at great risk to their health and their families. The U.S. labor market, however, has not fairly rewarded that vital work. Very few essential workers receive hazard pay to compensate for their now more dangerous work, and low pay among essential and frontline workers continues to be prevalent. An analysis by the Economic Policy Institute found that a majority of workers who would benefit from raising the wage to $15 an hour are essential or frontline workers. It's interesting. Some say that raising the minimum wage in Nebraska will actually hurt those employees we are trying to help by possibly elimination of jobs. But realistically, Nebraska currently and historically has had low unemployment rate. I hear from business owners throughout my work that they are continuing to have worker shortages and do not see this as changing anytime in the near future. One of the ways to keep and retain employees is by paying a decent, livable wage. We have the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of many, many hardworking Nebraskans by voting for this ballot initiative 433. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. We're going to turn now to opponents who've signed in, and of whom we have one at this point, and that is Rex Schroeder. Mr. Schroeder. Good afternoon, welcome. Please tell us your name, spell your name. If you're representing a group, tell us who that is. And then after that, you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. My name is Rex, R-E-X, Schroeder, S-C-H-R-O-D-E-R. And I'm here to represent myself. I am an investor, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a business owner. Raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour is not going to accomplish what everybody thinks is going to happen. As a business owner, the reason you're in business is to make money. And $15 an hour is not a living wage. A living wage is some fabrication of the left's imagination. As a business owner, what's going to happen when you increase from the current minimum wage to $15 an hour, like 66, something like that %? What's going to happen is you're going to have businesses basically say, okay, we're no longer going to have you at 40 hours a week. We're going to reduce your hours to less than full-time rate. And then I don't have to pay you benefits. And they're going to have a lot of automation. It's not going to end up like they think it's going to. I got out of high school. I was working 2 jobs. I went to college. I put myself through college, and I had 3 jobs. I worked for a living. And right now, we can't find people to work at $16 or $17 an hour. So paying them $15 an hour is not going to help. I've had to start doing more work. I used to be the boss. I still am the boss. But now I got to do more of the work because we can't find help at $16 or $17 an hour. So this isn't going to help. I work for a living. That's why I'm dressed the way I am. Okay? I've worked all morning. I had to hurry up and get here. And now, once I leave here, I have to hurry up and go back and continue doing the work I was doing today. I work for a living. Okay? Having the government force me to pay my employees more per hour is one thing. But the government can't tell me how much I have to pay my employees per week. So they may be able to say I have to pay them $15 an hour. But what's going to happen is I may switch some of them to a W-9 employee, which means they're not mine. They get paid on their own. At that point in time, that's all different than how I pay them. I may pay them on commission. I may pay them on a piece rate basis. As an owner and an investor, I pay my employees what my business model says that I have to pay my employees. Okay? Forcing me to pay more money per hour, it's not going to help. Look at Seattle, Washington. There's a McDonald's franchise out there. They tried this. Automation happened. Many people in that franchise just said, you're fired. Okay? And don't think it's not going to happen in Nebraska. Nebraska is an at-will state. If I have 10 employees, I can just say, eeny, meeny, miny, you're fired. I don't have to give you a reason. Okay? The object is to make money. That's why you own a business. So it's not going to work as well as they think it is. Comments before, I was sitting in the back patiently listening. It's amazing how when you work for a living, I grew up on a farm. I know what work's all about. Minimum wage is for minimum skills. One comment earlier was some of the people who are on minimum wage have graduated a 4-year college. If you've graduated a 4-year college and you're working for minimum wage, you got the wrong degree. Think about this. You're going to spend thousands of dollars going to college for 4 years, and when you get out, you're going to make minimum wage? That's kind of humorous to a lot of business owners. So I'm here today to tell you that this is not going to have the results that you think it's going to have. You're going to go into any fast food chain and order a number 6 with fries and a Coke. It's going to cost you $20. How was that going to work?
You have a little less than a minute.
Okay, thank you. So as an investor, an entrepreneur, and a business owner, I bet there's a lot of folks that would really love to come here today and talk, but they're just not here. But this is going to be horrible for the state of Nebraska. And in closing arguments, it's amazing how the poor have been voting Democrat all their life, and they're still poor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schroeder. Move to testifier in support. Next is Kimberly Baker. Ms. Baker. Thank you for coming,
Thank you, Secretary of the.
and please state your name, spell your name. If you're representing an organization, let us know, and after that, you'll have 5 minutes.
Of course, thank you. My name is Kimberly Baker. That's spelled Kimberly, surname Baker, and I strongly support Initiative 433. I have worked hard in customer service, academic tutoring, and claims management since I was 17, and I have never made more than $15 an hour. I have done everything I could right. I have earned a bachelor's degree. I speak multiple languages. I have raised my son well, and I am proud to be speaking at this hearing with him today. But never making more than 15 means that just due to the cost of housing alone, we can't live independently. We've had to live with my parents his whole life. No county in Nebraska has a living wage calculated to be less than $15.28 per hour. Inflation is a big concern right now, but for thousands of Nebraskans, inflation is just a sharpening of the knife that's been cutting away at any margin in our budgets that we may have had before. If we don't address the minimum wage now, it sends a message that we don't really care if the workers earning the least can meet their needs. If we do not pass this measure, we are rejecting a reasonable and frankly overdue tool to keep more folks from falling further into poverty while doing everything right. At least 50,000 workers who would benefit from this live at or near the poverty line, and nearly half of all workers affected by Initiative 433 are working full-time. On the other hand, if we do pass this measure, we open the door for so many opportunities. Academic researchers evaluate every minimum wage increase from 1990 through 2019 and found not only that hiring never dropped because of a raise, but also that it narrowed the racial pay gap by increasing workers' mobility and their ability to pay for reliable transportation to get to higher paying jobs. Lincoln Public Schools families also have a lot to gain for voting for Initiative 433. Our schools boast impressive statistics for graduation and test results, but at the same time, 43.4% of students qualify for free or reduced lunch. And all students should have access to nutritious food, whether they can pay for it or not. But what the statistics tells us is that 43.4% of students' families are living and making enough money at the maximum to get from paycheck to paycheck. I said that I've never made more than $15 an hour in my 20 years in the workforce. I have never been able to house myself and my son on our own. I am grateful for the support from my family. Without them, I don't know if I could have kept my son with me. He's smart and he works hard in school, but I've seen the stress put upon him by my capped earning potential. There are students in LPS who rarely see their parents because they're at work. These children are funneled from program to school to program while their parents work 60, 70, even 80 hours per week. Kids' achievement grows when parents can provide support, and for low-wage workers with kids, sometimes that looks like only just having enough to eat at home. In fact, kids and families who don't know where their next meal is coming from are more likely to repeat a grade and have lower test scores in mathematics and reading. And I do want to highlight one more important aspect of the policy, and it relates directly to me. Initiative 433 will adjust the minimum wage on a yearly basis to help account for increases in the cost of living. It will ensure that our wages do not stagnate the way mine have. It will help make Nebraska a more appealing state for workers and tighten the gap that hardworking Nebraskans are falling through and provide a more stable start for our children. Thank you very kindly for your time and consideration, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. right, we move to an opponent. Ansley Fellers. Ms. Fellers. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. Would you please tell us your name, spell your name, and if you are representing an organization, let us know. And then after that, you'll have 5 minutes.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Ansley Fellers. That's Ansley. My last name is Fellers, Fellers. I'm here on behalf of the Nebraska Grocery Industry Association. I represent folks from across the food industry in Nebraska, and I'm here primarily to provide some information. There isn't an opportunity to be neutral on this, so I'm here to tell folks, and we're here to inform voters about what this means specifically for small and medium-sized businesses in Nebraska. I don't like using the term living wage. I represent people who pay well above a living wage, and concerns from the business community and the people I represent about mandates like this don't mean they don't want everyone, their employees and others, to be successful. But this is a one-size-fits-all approach, like most government mandates, and it disproportionately hurts small and medium-sized businesses. There's a reason that large companies that can otherwise afford to oppose things like this don't put money in opposition. They can weather it. They can afford to, pay people $15 an hour and wait for their small and medium-sized competition to go out of business. This also doesn't take into account the cost of living differences in communities across the state. This initiative treats businesses in Omaha like those in McCook, and businesses in Lincoln like businesses in Superior or Kimball or Thetford, where we have businesses, where we have grocery stores, we have wholesalers and distributors. It also doesn't take into account quality of life related benefits of small and medium-sized businesses. These small businesses offer flexibility. They know their employees personally, they know their families, they know their communities, and they know their customers. And while in some cases they might not pay as much as a larger company, workers are there because they appreciate what that business has to offer. If you have a sick child, or you have to care for a parent, or you need a change of hours during the school year, those companies work with you. And in Nebraska, individuals looking for work have the upper hand. They can work at a small business for all the reasons I just mentioned, or they can jump to a larger corporation if that's what they want to do. The market's on their side. We're facing the highest inflation we've seen in 40 years. Wages and what people can afford is actually supposed to be something of a counterbalance to skyrocketing inflation. We should be helping people make ends meet. There's no doubt about it. Keeping their homes, putting food on the table, people should be able to keep up. But when it comes to things that aren't necessities, when inflation is up and they become unaffordable, that's what's supposed to balance the demand and supply. Whatever gains we make addressing inflation over the next few months are going to be offset by mandated wage increases that come as soon as January. I read this morning a release and I heard the data again. Some of these institutions that I very much respect supporting the minimum wage increase, but the data being used is from 2019 and 2020. I understand this is probably what's available, but it's not a proper snapshot of employment given what we've seen in wage growth since 2020. To be clear, wages are up significantly, something the market has demanded for several years, but individuals and families don't feel like they're making more because we haven't gotten inflation under control. Someone making $1.50 more come January isn't going to feel like they're making more because employers are going to cut hours and the price of goods and services is going to go up. To be clear, the argument that a mandatory increase doesn't increase inflation relies on the notion that employers just won't hire. That's not good for employees in Nebraska either. What's also really unfortunate about efforts like this is that lower wage jobs will be the first to go. We're speeding up automation and cutting these positions. These jobs are currently being filled by young people, people entering or re-entering the workforce. So we talk a lot about folks that are coming out of prison. They need these jobs. We talk about folks with disabilities. These are people learning new skills, learning how to work and interact with customers, learning how to manage money, and we're whittling away these opportunities. These individuals don't earn minimum wage forever. They learn and they grow and they become assets. Once individuals are trained, no employer wants to lose them. They pay them to stick around. Finally, I have in front of me several articles, they're not hard to find, about cities and states that tied their minimum wage to inflation, exactly what we're talking about in this petition. If this were in effect this year without a cap, come January, wages would go up more than 8%. That would decimate businesses. In closing, wrap it up. In closing, I want to remind everyone that we have state and federal programs to expand to help the working poor and keep up with inflation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fellers. All right, we're going to turn now to a supporter. Next is Vic Clafter. Mr. Clafter. Good afternoon, welcome. Thank you for being here. Please tell us your name, spell your name, tell us your organization, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Secretary of State. My name is Vic Clafter, Vicklafter. I'm reading a statement in support of Initiative 433 from Cinnamon Dawkin, owner of a Novel Idea bookstore in Lincoln.
Mr.
Cinnamon-
Clafter, are you representing an organization today?
We can say I'm representing Nebraska Appleseed, but I'm reading this statement on behalf of Cinnamon Dawkin.
Thank you.
And Cinnamon's name is spelled CINNAMONDOKKEN. Cinnamon could not be here in person, but wanted to share her support. The following is her statement. I support raising the minimum wage because it is too low for Nebraska workers and businesses. It's an important tool to encourage consumer spending and create a more robust economy. I founded my business in 1991 when I was a college senior. I opened my bookstore in an unheated, unair-conditioned basement just a few blocks from UNL City campus. 31 years later, I have a lovely bookstore with heat and above ground. Given how long my employees have been with me, all of my staff have received raises and all make above the current minimum wage. My longtime manager also received retirement contributions, paid vacation, and other benefits. Initiative 433 will impact the minimum wage I would pay for new hires. Still, I'm strongly advocating for the increase. Why? Because I can't get my wages as high as I'd like them to be if I'm going this alone. A state minimum wage increase across the board is the tool that will help me raise wages for my staff. When we are all doing it together, we can succeed in helping workers and ourselves. We know that workers are consumers, and our economy depends on consumer spending. We know that when workers have more money, the economy improves. When stimulus checks were issued during the pandemic, workers had more breathing room. People made a point of spending their stimulus payments at local businesses. They had money they didn't have before, and they wanted local businesses to survive. It helped a lot, and we did survive. We just celebrated 31 years in business. Those stimulus checks helped us get there. When there was talk of increasing the minimum wage years ago, some businesses were worried about making the increased payroll. I had those concerns. What happened to us after the minimum wage increase? Our sales and revenue increased. We have added staff positions. Increase workers' purchasing power, and they will purchase. Spending will increase again at businesses across Nebraska when workers have more money from a higher minimum wage. Another piece of this proposal that's key for small business owners like me, the increase will not happen all at once. Wages will increase gradually on a schedule over a period of years. Raising the minimum wage on the gradual schedule proposed gives business owners like me needed time to plan. The effect of the first increase on our revenue will help us reach the second increase, and so on. Finally, the proposed minimum wage increase will boost our economy while lessening workers' financial stress, allowing for better job performance and more community engagement. A higher wage floor will improve the competitiveness of small businesses and our appeal to prospective employees. This is a smart plan. A consumer economy needs consumers. Thank you for your time. And that concludes the statement I'm reading from Cinnamon Dawkin, owner of a Novel Idea bookstore in Lincoln. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Clafter. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify against Initiative 433? Anyone else in the room who wishes to testify against, please let me know. Okay, we have now additional supporters who would like to testify. Next is Karen Anthony. Ms. Anthony. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Please tell us your name, spell your name. If you're representing an organization, let us know, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Karen Anthony, spelled Karenanthony. I live in Lincoln. I strongly support 433. I've been working in healthcare for almost 40 years. I started by caring for my grandmother, learned quickly that I'm really good at it. In 1988, I started working as a home care provider for the state. I was making $5 an hour. Today, 32 years later, I'm making only $12 an hour. How is that? It isn't. On $12 an hour, I cannot buy my own groceries. I can't afford a car. I use the bus and rely on my kids and coworkers to give me a ride. With almost 40 years of experience and skill and bare minimum, I should have access to a job that pays me enough to live, get to work, and from home. I live in the same house for almost 20 years, even though the roof leaks and the insulation is bad because the rent doesn't go up. I improved the property so much that what I do, I pour myself into people and places around me to make them better. I do this work too. I help out the younger home care providers, see things that are missing. I can spot a gap in clients' care quickly. I know what to do to make it right. I have seen and heard about accidents that are a result of being inexperienced, understaffed, underpaid. Providers who are new get stressed out what they have to handle, which means our clients who are valuable individuals don't get the dignity they deserve. Dignity for our clients start with dignity for us workers. Raising minimum wage is crucial to save health care. The gradual increase gives time for our employees in the state of Nebraska to figure out how much they value people's lives in terms to provide rates and workforce investment. That's what we're talking about here. People's lives, my life, everyone who might ever need care, which is all of us. I have worked my whole life. I don't have health care benefits. I never received paid vacation. I never seen a friend who lived in Oklahoma for 30 years because I can't afford a trip. It hurts to think about it, but I didn't get to see my nephew before he died because I couldn't afford it and my job wouldn't let me time off. Anyone who wants quality care at home should be fighting for this too. In fact, as our population gets older, we'll need many more providers. People deserve to have that opportunity to put in order for people like me to meet their needs. We must raise minimum wage. Otherwise, there will be nobody able or willing to provide crucial care. Being a home care provider has taken so much for me, but I can't quit it now. This is what I know how to do and good at all. I don't want to raise just for me, even though I just definitely deserve it. I want to raise for everyone like me. We all have to meet our own needs. Before we can meet other folks' needs, 12 doesn't cut it. 15 scratches the surface. Please support 433. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Anthony. Thank you for coming in this afternoon. All right, next is Adrian Baker. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, sir.
Come on up, have a chair.
Okay.
You wouldn't be the son that Ms. Baker was talking about earlier, would you?
I am the son.
All right, well, we're looking forward to your remarks, sir. Please tell us your name, spell it. If you're representing an organization, let us know, then you'll have 5 minutes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adrian Baker, spelled ADRIAN BAKER. And I am a kid who lives with an amazing mom and amazing grandparents. And I am very much so grateful for them. And that's because without my grandparents, my mom and I would be living in poverty right now. Because my mother has barely enough to feed herself, let alone to do everything else, like raising me, for example. And it is because of this that I believe we need Initiative 433 right away. One reason is that I am the future of this country. Tomorrow is my 16th birthday. I will one day vote and one day enter the workforce. And there are tons of other kids that are in the exact same spot that are also the future of this great nation. There are some who are already working, such as my cousin who is currently my age. And with the amount of money the minimum wage currently provides, that future could cease to exist in the blink of an eye because they don't have the options and resources available because they are living in poverty. To quote Trevor Noah from his autobiography, people don't want money. They want options. And money gives said options. And that's just what's happening to my mother, who can't afford to feed me, so I'm on free school lunch. She can't send me to college, so I can't get a degree. And she can't afford independent housing, which she has described as being kind of cooped up. She also doesn't have much time off to be with me except on weekends. And there are some days I just, kind of want to hang with her, like yesterday, because I'm currently on fall break and I would like to spend the day yesterday with her. But with 433, my mom will be able to spend more time with me. We would be able to do more fun things together, like go on vacation, which you normally can't do because of travel costs and all that stuff. And she could also send me to college so I could get myself a degree. So to make these improvements, I ask everyone to vote for Initiative 433 as soon as possible. And if that's not enough to convince, then how about this? I am also grateful for the part of 433 that includes making sure Nebraska minimum wage keeps pace with the cost of living. Because minimum wage increases are small, they don't happen enough because the senators don't always dress all the time, and it's a very long process to get on the ballot. Meanwhile, inflation, as we've seen of late, is uncontrolled. It increases rapidly and frantically. And that's very difficult for minimum wage to keep up with. And that makes people have to do more with less buying power, which is very hard to do when you can't make enough to live on as it is. But with Initiative 433, you could make more money to do all that stuff. And more. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Thank you for coming forward, and you have rightfully made your mother very proud.
Thank you, sir.
Right, next, we have Spike Eichhold. Mr. Eichhold.
Couldn't remember when I signed in. I hope I wasn't following Mr. Baker, but I guess I was. Unfortunately, that's a tough act to follow.
It's tough to follow Mr. Baker, but I know you'll do your best. Please
Thank you.
tell us your name, spell your name. If you're representing an organization, let us know that, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. My name is Spike Eichholt, S-P-I-K-E. Last name is E-I-C-K-H-O-L-T, appearing on behalf of the ACLU of Nebraska as their registered lobbyist. And the ACLU of Nebraska is one of the coalition partners that work to place this issue on the ballot before the voters this fall. And we are here testifying in support of Initiative 433. This approval of Initiative 433 will benefit thousands of Nebraskans. I don't want to repeat to oblige the Secretary of State what you said earlier. I'm not going to repeat the testimony you heard earlier. You've heard from the people it's going to benefit both firsthand and secondhand. I just wanted to point out that it's not just the beginning workforce. It's not just high school children. It's not just people coming out of the prison facilities. It benefits thousands of Nebraskans who work. It's the poor. It's primarily people of color benefit from increasing minimum wage. It's oftentimes women who are working these low wage jobs and the uneducated force as well. And I just want to highlight that and elevate that because that's an important factor. This increase in minimum wage, this step up adjustment is sound, as Kate Wolf explained before. It steps up eventually from $9 to $15 an hour with a $1.50 increase over the next successive years. And then the second provision that this Initiative 433 has, it provides for this adjustment for inflation, this automatic increase that is different. That's not the current statutory scheme now that provides for the $9 minimum wage. But this automatic adjustment for inflation is sound legislative policy. The legislature already provides for this for a number of different benefit adjustments for different retirement programs for the school retirement programs, for the state patrol retirement, and for judges retirement. There's an automatic increase so that the payments to those recipients don't stagnate as our current minimum wage has. This effort is supported by thousands of Nebraskans, and you know this because there was over 160,000 signatures that were submitted to the Secretary of State, nearly 10% of the population, not the voting people, but the actual population of the state. And I think that the people of Nebraska will rightly approve this when it's before the voters this fall. And I thank you for the time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Eichel. Next is Becky Gould. Ms. Gould. Thank you for joining us. Please tell us your name, spell your name. If you're representing an organization, let us know, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Becky Gould, Beckygould, and I'm with Nebraska Appleseed, but I'm here this afternoon to read a statement on behalf of Denise Boyer, DeniseboWyer, who is with Nebraska Business for a Fair Minimum Wage. Here is her statement. My name is Denise Boyer. I represent Nebraska Business for a Fair Minimum Wage, a coalition of nearly 300 Nebraska business owners who support Initiative 433 to gradually raise the state minimum wage to $15 an hour in 2026. Nebraskans voted back in 2014 to raise the minimum wage to $9 by 2016, but it's still set at $9 today, despite rising living costs since 2016. It's important to remember that workers are also customers. When people earn more as workers, they can afford to spend more as customers. Minimum wage increases go right back into the economy as spending at local businesses. Raising the minimum wage will strengthen Nebraska's workforce, businesses, and communities. In the words of business supporter Rick Poor, owner of Shirts 101 in Lincoln, raising the minimum wage will help Nebraska's workers make ends meet and boost our economy. Workers at one business are also customers at many other businesses. Raising the minimum wage is good for business in many ways beyond increased consumer spending. Low pay typically means higher turnover as workers look for jobs elsewhere to make ends meet. Raising the minimum wage pays off in lower employee turnover, which reduces hiring and training costs. And it pays off in increased productivity and better customer service. In the words of Alma Soretta, owner of Manna Games and Cafe in Lincoln, fair wages are the single best way you can show your employees that you value them. In return, our employees take great care of our customers. Happy customers come back. Steph Terry, Director of Operations at Morrow Collision Center in Lincoln, says, fair pay shows in our service. We know we can count on our team to deliver the friendly service and excellent quality that our customers count on. Businesses for a Fair Minimum Wage and the National Employment Law Project recently released a report called Raising Nebraska's Minimum Wage Will Benefit Businesses and Workers. The report reviews decades of research showing that raising the minimum wage does not reduce employment, and it explains the association between higher wages and better employee retention, productivity, and customer service. Graham Pansing Brooks, CEO of Sea Change in Lincoln, said, we know from experience as well as business research that keeping staff engaged, fulfilled, and fairly compensated leads to better business results. This includes better employee retention, productivity, quality, and customer service. I will finish with the words of Dave Titterington, owner of Wild Bird Habitat stores in Lincoln and Omaha. Raising the minimum wage is a win-win for businesses and workers. When you pay employees a living wage, they're happier, they're more dedicated, and they're more productive. And raising the minimum wage will enable workers to spend more at local businesses all across Nebraska. That concludes the statement I'm reading for Denise Boyer of Nebraska Business for a Fair Minimum Wage. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Gould. Next, we have Nick Scheibert. Good afternoon, Mr. Scheibert. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Nailed it. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Please then tell us your name, spell your name. If you're representing someone, let us know that, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary. My name is Nick Scheibert, spelled Nick
SHYBUT, and I am representing Firespring here in Lincoln. Firespring CEO Jay Wilkinson is out of town, so he couldn't be here today, but he did want to. And he shared a quote with the organization Business for a Fair Minimum Wage, so I wanted to start off by sharing that with you all. In 2014, Firespring became Nebraska's first certified B Corporation, with a mission to accelerate client prosperity so we collectively do more good. That very same year, the minimum wage was raised to $9 per hour, and it hasn't been raised again since. It's time to raise the wage, Nebraska. Like many organizations here today, we at Firespring know that our people are our greatest asset. A year and a half ago, in April of 2021, Firespring made the decision to increase our company's minimum wage for full-time hourly team members to $15 per hour. We knew that raising our minimum wage was one step in the right direction towards having happier and healthier team members, which also correlates into their performance and morale at work. And for many, that also we know that happy clients often begins with happy team members. It also provided us with the opportunity to uphold one of our core company values, have each other's back. We recognize the value that investing our team members can have on supporting our local economy by providing them with more disposable income to use as they see fit. In many cases, that is giving back to the local economy. We also believe in using work and fun in the same sentence and feel that team members can earn a great living and actually have fun doing it. And a big piece of that starts with fair wages. With today's cost of living, it's hard for many workers in Nebraska to have an enjoyable and sustainable future for themselves and their families without having to worry about making ends meet or how they'll be able to pay for regular necessities like the cost of health insurance and weekly groceries, which seems hard to fathom when someone is earning anything less than $15 an hour. In order for our team members to invest and reinvest in our local economy as consumers, we as business leaders and community members need to first invest in them. Let's unite together and support our community. Let's continue to recruit and retain talented team members, and let's work with them to keep them here in our great state of Nebraska and to help support all of our local businesses and the economy. So again, let's raise the wage, Nebraska. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Scheibert. Next, we have Andrew Farias. You'll have to, when you get here, I will listen carefully as you tell us your name so that I get it right.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Please tell us your name, spell your name. If you're representing an organization, let us know, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Yeah. Howdy, Secretary Evnen. My name is Andrew Farias. That's ANDREWFARIAS. This past year, I worked as a canvasser for the Raise the Wage campaign, where I traveled to dozens of different cities and towns in Nebraska to collect signatures to raise the minimum wage. Everywhere from the city of Omaha, population almost 500,000, to the village of Taylor, Nebraska, population 140. We collected signatures from people parked in their cars lined up outside of a food bank distribution center in Falls City during the snowy February months. We table at events like LGBTQ pride parades and cultural festivals in Lincoln in the middle of the sweltering summer. Along the way, I got to knock hundreds of doors and meet so many phenomenal people that this great state has to offer. In one instance, I got the pizza delivery guy to sign the petition as he delivered dinner to the front porch of one family. In another instance, I comforted a father as he cried about his financial struggles to care for his daughter living with disabilities. The cost of food has gone up. The cost of rent has gone up. The cost of childcare has gone up. Gas prices, healthcare, the cost of living, everything has increased. The only thing that hasn't increased is our minimum wage. People are trying to survive and raise entire families on $9 per hour, less than $19,000 a year. We can't tell Nebraskans to pull themselves up by their bootstraps when they can't afford boots to begin with. Thank you for your time, Mr. Secretary.
All right, Mr. Farias, thank you. Next, we have thank you. Joey Adler, and I could, Ruane?
Ruane.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Ruane, tell us your name, spell your name. If you're representing somebody, let us know, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Sounds wonderful. Hello, Secretary Evnen. My name is Joey Adler Ruane, Joey Adler Ruane, and I am the Policy Director for Open Sky Policy Institute. Open Sky's mission is to improve opportunities for every Nebraskan by providing impartial and precise research, analysis, education, and leadership. We need an economy that respects hardworking Nebraskans, where people are paid enough to support their families and contribute to their communities. Gradually raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour will help us meet that goal. Voting yes on ballot initiative 433 and raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour will increase opportunities for Nebraskans by increasing wages for almost 30% of Nebraskans and lifting 10,000 people out of poverty in our state. Open Sky research shows that more than 20% of Nebraska workers make less than $15 an hour. These residents would be directly impacted by increasing the minimum wage, and another 10% of the workforce would be indirectly impacted by increasing the minimum wage. Most of these workers currently receive slightly more than $15 an hour and would likely receive pay increases due to the minimum wage increase to retain and recruit workers. This means an estimated 319,000, or 30% of the workforce in Nebraska, would likely be positively affected by increasing the minimum wage. Our research shows the average Nebraska worker would receive an annual increase of almost $2,400 under this measure. Raising the minimum wage would lift more than 10,000 Nebraskans out of poverty, including 3,500 children. Almost half of Black workers, 3 out of 5 Latinx workers, more than 2 out of 5 Asian workers, and more than 1 in 5 white workers would all receive raises if the minimum wage were increased to $15 an hour. Analysis by the Center for American Progress shows that states that have raised the minimum wage have been able to staff up more easily post-pandemic. This is likely due to the fact that these states and businesses do not have to raise their wages to stay competitive. Conversely, states like Nebraska, where the minimum wage is less than $15 an hour, have had a harder time staffing up and face high demand for workers. We commonly hear that raising the minimum wage will increase already high inflation. However, the Economic Policy Institute states that arguing that the minimum wage should only be raised after the current inflationary outbreak is far in the past is arguing that low-wage workers should have no serious protection against the damage to living standards being done by today's price growth. EPI modeling shows that raising the minimum wage to $15 over 5 years would only increase the overall price by less than 0.5%. The belief that raising the minimum wage will lead to a loss of jobs, thus hurting minimum wage employees, is not borne out by the evidence. Nebraskans have the chance to raise the minimum wage gradually to $15 an hour in the November elections. By approving ballot initiative 433, 10,000 Nebraskans will be lifted out of poverty, and the wages of approximately 30% of Nebraskans will increase. Open Sky believes that this policy is good for Nebraskans and the state's economy, and we would strongly urge the passing of ballot initiative 433. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruane. Next, we have Arlo Hettel. Mr. Hettel, good afternoon. Thank you for coming in. Please tell us your name, spell your name. If you're representing somebody, let us know, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Arlo Hettel, ARLOHETTLE, and I am testifying on behalf of the Nebraska Civic Engagement Table. We are a member organization serving nearly 80 other nonpartisan nonprofit organizations throughout Nebraska. Our nonprofit members work directly in communities across the state, and what we hear over and over again is that raising the minimum wage would have a tremendous positive impact and change thousands of people's lives for the better. That is why we as an organization are proud to be supporting Initiative 433. There are so many people in communities across our state who are working full-time or even working multiple jobs and are still struggling to get by. We hear stories about the difficult choices people have to make around food, gas, healthcare, and housing because costs are rising and wages aren't keeping up. And these stories are heartbreaking, but it doesn't have to be this way. Voting for Initiative 433 in November and gradually raising the minimum wage will help thousands of working Nebraskans support their livelihoods and their families. This will strengthen our communities and make our state stronger. The organization I represent, the Nebraska Civic Engagement Table, works to increase the civic participation of underrepresented communities. In our work, we constantly see that there are barriers to participating in civic life when people are worried about meeting their basic needs. Taking the time to speak at a hearing like this, for example, is a lot more difficult for someone working 60 hours a week to support their family. Raising the wage can open the door for more people to get involved in their neighborhood, city, and state. It can give people time to connect with their neighbors, get involved in volunteer work, and advocate for themselves and their families. In fact, a recent study from MIT found that the voting participation rates of low-wage workers increased in the election following a minimum wage increase. Or consider the lengthy ballots that we are starting to receive in the mail. How can we expect people to find the time to research dozens of candidates when they're struggling to put food on the table? People want to be involved, and we need to work to stop the barriers to that involvement. We know that civic participation makes communities safer, healthier, and more vibrant. If we want our communities to succeed, we first need to give people the ability to meaningfully support themselves. Increasing the minimum wage is a big step forward in doing just that. I encourage everyone to join me in voting for Initiative 433 on November 8th. Let's raise the wage and make our state a better place to live and work. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hiddle. Next is Edison McDonald. Mr. McDonald. Good afternoon, welcome.
Hello.
Would you'd be kind enough, please, to tell us your name, spell your name, let us know your organization, and then you will have 5 minutes.
My name is Edison McDonald, Edison McDonald. I'm representing the ARC of Nebraska. We are Nebraska's largest membership organization representing people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We're here today in support of Initiative Measure 433 to increase the minimum wage. We need to raise Nebraska's minimum wage to help support people with disabilities. Historically, the majority of people with an intellectual or developmental disability have been either unemployed or underemployed despite their ability, desire, and willingness to work in the community. Many have been placed in pre-vocational programs and disability-only workshops where they are paid below the minimum wage in what's called a 14C exemption with an average pay of just $3.23. They have little expectation of moving into jobs where they can work alongside people without disabilities. Our support is centered in our policy statement that we believe that people with intellectual and or developmental disabilities can be employed in the community alongside people without disabilities and earn competitive wages. They should be supported to make informed choices about their work and careers and have the resources to seek, obtain, and be successful in community employment. Currently, 54% of people with disabilities in Nebraska are looking for work. They want to work. By raising the wage to a livable standard, we will ensure the opportunity for independence for people with disabilities. This will help to ensure that our valuable providers, in particular our direct support professionals, will be paid a quality living wage for the vital work that they do to support people with disabilities. I do know lots of businesses that pay below $15 an hour. It's frequently to those people with disabilities and to those who support them. Do we want to have to force those who care for our most vulnerable to piece together 3 positions to just survive? Tired employees are a safety issue that we are deeply concerned about. Today, I also speak as a former business owner who came to this work because I hired people with disabilities. They are some of the most hardworking and dedicated individuals that I've had the pleasure to manage. However, many predatory business owners fail to pay them a living wage, thus forcing them towards state and federal benefits to survive instead of being able to survive in the dignity of their own work. The irony is that this perversion of the free market forces good business owners who pay fair wages and taxes to subsidize their competition through our tax dollars. We believe in the American dream, that people with disabilities want to work and want to provide for themselves. We can't allow these bad business owners to continue to take advantage of people with disabilities and undercut the American dream. This is a safety issue for those workers. This is a dignity of human life issue for those people with disabilities who are discriminated against. It's time to raise the wage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. All right, next we have Julie Sondra. Good afternoon, Ms. Sondra. Thank you for being here. Please tell us your name, spell your name. If you're representing an organization, let us know that, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Julie Sondrup, Juliesonderup. I have two stores called the Moose's Tooth and Cycle Works. My husband and I own those. Started 41 years ago. So I feel fairly vested in this issue. I can remember when minimum wage was $7.25. I remember 9. And as of late, when COVID hit and everything happened and people are struggling to retain employees afterwards, we kind of revisited where we start people and decided wholeheartedly just go straight across the board, 15, part-time and full-time. I would say it was probably one of the best decisions we've made. They're more interested employees. They're happier employees. They genuinely care about what they're doing. Now, granted, these are bikes and things you use for fun, going mountain climbing and backpacking. So not brain surgery or products for that. But I would have to say it's not hurt us at all. In fact, it's raised the level of customer service that those employees are willing to provide. They're all in. They want to learn about the products we have on a much deeper level than when we would just have the average person coming in to, they need a paycheck. That's not who we have anymore. And I really do attribute it to, we're flexible with the kind of hours they work. They're kind of an eclectic bunch. And so they like to have their time off. They love to go ride their bike. We appreciate that. But paying them, starting at 15, I feel it's actually cleared the way for me. I now feel I can ask. I do want a little more from you. I need you to be in. I need you to be invested in whether or not this person finds what they came for. We have one young boy who started when he was 14, and he started at $12 an hour. He wanted to learn how to build bikes, and he wants to own a bike shop someday. And I think that's kind of a gift. I'm not going to insult him by starting him at 9, even if he's 14. His parents wanted him to be there kind of as an internship type thing, but we felt he should be compensated in one way, and he has just flourished. I do see it in his future. So I think it's more of a, $9 an hour in this day and age. Maybe they can get a, McDonald's breakfast for $9 an hour after taxes. But then what? You worked for an hour for that? That is kind of insulting. I have an 18-year-old daughter who just graduated from East, and now she's a pre-vet student at UNL. She wanted to get a job in a vet practice, so she begged her way into a clinic. They don't hire before kids graduate, but they said, we will do this with you. We're going to teach you everything about this business from the ground up. Started her at $9 and said, you'll be at $9 for 6 months. And I thought, okay, bite your tongue. She's not qualified yet. Let her start. Before a month and a half was out, she had keys to the business and the alarm code and was going in on her own at 5 a.m. to start things for the day. She worked the front desk and helped with medical procedures. Those are people's family members. You drop your dog off at your vet, you take your family member to get treatment. My $9 an hour 18-year-old was being allowed to help with treatment. It got to be too many hours put on an 18-year-old, and I thought, you know what, you're going to go to college and their schedule can't allow for this. If they can't compensate you, then that's the first thing that has to go. The thing that doesn't make a difference to you. $9 doesn't put a dent in it. So I kind of equate that with what I do. We're selling bikes and we're giving them 15. They are letting her help with stitches on a puppy for $9. So we made her quit. She needs to focus on school and becoming a vet. And she now knows she will do it differently. Absolutely. So it didn't hurt us. It helped. So that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Sandro.
Yep.
Next is Laurel Windsor. Ms. Windsor, good afternoon. Please tell us your name, spell your name. If you're representing someone, let us know, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. My name is Laurel Windsor, LaurelWinsor. I'm here as an individual, and I'm representing Darcy Linz, who couldn't be here today. So this is Darcy's statement. My name is Darcy Linz, spelled Darcilynes. I live in Lincoln. I support 433. I work in food service and make much less than $15. I have 3 wonderful kids. Even with 2 incomes in our household, I have to figure out what's more important, getting my kids clothes and shoes or paying the bills. My youngest has had some serious health issues throughout her first year. She was in the hospital for a month. Every doctor's visit means I need to miss work. I need to be home to be a mom to my kids, but I need to be at work to be able to keep our home. I'm supposed to receive Section 8 within the next year, which I hope will help, but it's a long road still to get there when we don't have enough money for food now. I hope we can keep the rent paid. Parents like me need jobs with some flexible shifts, but the jobs like that I can get to pay us really low wages. I don't have a car and cannot afford one. To take the bus to be on time, I need to leave 1 to 2 hours earlier than when my shift starts, and that's for places that are within a reasonable distance from the bus route. I recently switched jobs because it's closer to me. At my old job, there were at least 5 other women like me, moms, making too little, stressed, stuck. I'm speaking up for myself and for them too. We have all gone through something difficult in our life, but allowing wages that are less than the bare minimum to live, we are setting people up for hardship and keeping them there. I should not have to choose between paying the bills and feeding my kids. And I'm away from my kids at work all this time, but still can't afford these essentials? Raising the minimum wage is an important step to help my family and so many more. Thank you for your time. And that concludes Darcy's statement.
All right, thank you, Ms. Windsor. Now we have Joe Fry. Mr. Fry. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Secretary of State.
Please tell us your name, spell your name. If you're representing an organization, let us know.
Okay.
And then you'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Joe Fry, Joefrey. I'm representing myself and my business. I'm a business owner here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I apologize, I did not prepare a statement, so this is a little bit off the cuff. Was interested in coming by and seeing what the crowd's reaction here to this particular ballot initiative. So I wanted to tell a little story. We recently in our business, we lost 2 staff members, and one of them to cancer and one of them to retirement. And I thought to myself, I'm going to go out and put a for hire sign out on the street now. And I'm laughing because you can walk down the street of Lincoln and trip over for hire signs. And I think it's everyone's looking for workers, and we're looking for good workers. And to the point of the young lady that stepped up, the mother who stepped up and said her daughter was working $9 an hour for the vet as a vet tech, but they made her quit. Well, I have to look at that and say that's fantastic, because that's not sustainable. If you have a good employee, you're not going to pay them $9 an hour and keep them. You're going to have to pay them more. And I listened to a couple of conversations here about the minimum wage and fair wage, and I think we're mingling those a little bit too much. A fair wage is negotiated by the employer and the employee, and they're both recognizing talent. And so when talent is recognized, you're not going to be making a minimum wage. And I believe that's a decision that should be made at the employee side and at the employer side, and not at the governmental side. I do want to credit Firespring for paying a $15 an hour minimum wage. I think that's fantastic. I would say other businesses, and I think that was an implementation of internal policy. I would say other businesses are doing the same right now, and I'm not going to disclose what I pay my employees, but I don't pay any of them even close to $15 an hour, because they're good people. They are engaged in what they're doing at my office, and I want to keep them. And so that's what I'm going to do. The one reason I do want to keep a minimum wage and keep it lower is because that allows.
Just for clarification, Mr. Fry.
I'm sorry.
When you say you don't pay any of them even close to the minimum, you mean you're paying above
Yes.
$15?
Yes, I'm paying above $15 an hour.
Thank you.
I apologize. Yes, that maybe sounded wrong. I would like to keep minimum wage, and the reason for that is that allows me to hire intelligent young men like Adrian back here and bring them through the process of employment and pay them more in the future. And so that is my statement. And kudos to a young kid that can come up here and quote Trevor Noah. Good work, buddy. So that's my statement. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Fry. Is there anyone present who would like to testify in opposition to Initiative 433? Anyone here who has not testified or would like to testify in opposition? Is there anyone else who would like to testify in support of it? All right, so we're going to move to closing statements now. This is from, first, we begin with Kate Wolf as a proponent. Ms. Wolf, thank you very much. And you will have 5 minutes to close.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. What a great hearing we had here today. It's difficult, as I've been scribbling throughout the hearing, to not repeat many of the wonderful points that were made from the supporters of Initiative 433. I'm very grateful to everyone and the business owners and individuals that would be affected by this increase in the minimum wage for being here. Raise the Wage Nebraska has had hundreds of businesses sign on to support Initiative 433. And it all comes back to the people. And I think we heard that from both opponents and proponents, that valuing your employees and retaining employees and reducing turnover, which is one of the most expensive labor impacts that businesses have, is critical to supporting our economy and keeping people happy and taking care of customers. The businesses that I hear from tell me that they are supporting Initiative 433 for many reasons, but one is that they know that it'll put more money in the pockets of their customers. Workers in underpaid jobs are out of necessity, most likely to spend any additional money they make. Consequently, raising the minimum wage is going to boost consumer spending as workers and their families buy goods and services from local businesses across Nebraska. So when people are earning and able to take care of themselves and spending in local businesses, we know the concerns that have been raised are the same concerns that were raised in 2014, and the numbers do not support those claims. The numbers support the fact that this is positive, that raising the minimum wage accomplishes exactly what it sets out to do. And as Nebraskans, we value hard work. And we know that our communities do better when everyone can take care of themselves and their loved ones. I encourage everyone to vote for 433 for workers, parents, families, children, and our economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. All right, now to close for opponents of the measure, Ms. Bollmeyer. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And to the young gentleman that came up, I sincerely hope you are on your high school speech team. You have a lot to offer them. I hope you encourage that. Thank you all to have come out to testify. Whether in opposition or support of the minimum wage, you have all done your duty to advocate for yourselves and for others, and you should be very proud of that. My testimony and the testimony of the business owners that I represent is all based in the reality of what this proposed mandate will do to small businesses that keep Nebraska affordable. I would like to remind everyone of the simple fact that if this wage increase passes, the language set will not be able to be amended by anything other than another ballot initiative. The outcome will be small businesses unable to keep their doors open due to be undercut by large corporations. Those stuck between the choice of buying groceries or paying rent will not see relief from this mandate, only a larger amount to pay for either choice. As Nebraskans, let's not allow our state to make poor choices. This is the good life. We should keep it that way. And with that, I give you the rest of my time.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Bollmeyer. Thank you all who are in attendance this afternoon. Thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts on this initiative. I appreciate it very much. And this hearing is now concluded. Its hearing is closed and we're off the record. Thank you, Ms. Boozy.